Hi guys, so Matt Hancock, the health secretary, was interviewed on Wednesday and he was asked if he and his government accepted responsibility for the number of deaths following the pandemic and what they're going to do about it. Now, Matt Hancock has a particular way of responding to questions. He doesn't answer them. Instead, he invents his own question and answers that instead. He will, of course, welcome the question and say, yes, that's a really good question and that's a very important question, but he won't actually answer it. Let's hear what he had to say.
I have to, at some point, accept some of the criticism that is laid at the door. We are a year on from the first lockdown, and according to the Johns Hopkins tracking, we are 5th in total deaths, 6th in deaths per 100,000, 6th in deaths per population. Why has that happened? Why, in terms of mortality, compared to other countries, have we done so poorly?
Now, Matt Hancock can't actually respond to this question. He can't actually answer it honestly, because he would have to say, well, because we didn't take it seriously at the beginning, because we didn't have enough PPE, because the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was telling people to take it on the chin, because we had run with the idea that perhaps Dominic Cummings had suggested of trying to deal with the pandemic by through means of herd immunity, not having a vaccine, but just using herd immunity. We went into lockdown too late. We came out of lockdown too early. We had ridiculous schemes like Eat Out to Help Out, which actually helped the virus, not the public. We introduced a tiered system that didn't work. We had to cancel the tiered system and implement a lockdown. Then there was the problem at Christmas. So there are many reasons, but unfortunately Matt Hancock isn't going to say these because then he would be forced to resign. But let's hear what he said instead.
Well, that's a very important question, and it's one...
It's a very important question that's not going to be answered.
...that it'll be the right time to assess that in the future.
It will be the right time to assess it in the future. So I could tell you the answers now, but I don't want to tell you now. I'll tell you in the future, when I'm out of office, when Boris Johnson is no longer Prime Minister, when the people who are responsible for this disaster, for the numbers of dead, when those people are no longer in a position where they can be punished, that's when I'll tell you.
But now, the right task is to spend all of our energies on
so can you explain
this virus.
We are a year on. We are on.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that Matt Hancock probably did this interview, believing that he would be congratulated for the rollout of the vaccine. He didn't expect, oh yes, there are people dying. I forgot about that.
And according to you, the third wave might be on its way here. When is the appropriate time? If things go badly, we could still be in this same time next year. If things go catastrophically, we could still be in this in some form. At which point you could again say, look, we're still in the middle of it. We're still dealing with it.
Exactly.
You've been...
Exactly. Yes, I'm going to kick the can down the road. The can of responsibility is going to keep getting kicked until it gets to a stage where punishing me is no longer politically expedient. There's no value in punishing me politically because I will be, sitting on the board of some health provider who's taken over control of some section of the NHS.
In charge of our pandemic response, you personally must have an idea why we are 6th in the world in deaths per capita.
Well, I think the point that you make is an important one because...
See, once again, the point you make is an important one, but I'm not actually going to... I don't believe it's important enough to respond to.
It's trying to get this country out of this pandemic. That is what I spend all of my time on. And vital and central to that task is constantly to learn about what has worked well.
We know what has worked well and we know what has not worked well. We know going into a lockdown late did not work well. We know that the vaccine is working well. We know that imposing, having a eat out to help out didn't work well. We know not having enough PPE didn't work well. We know that if you had enough PPE, that would have worked well. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
And what we need to do better and differently. And we've done that throughout this crisis.
The appropriate forum for that presumably would be an independent inquiry. And I'm not going to waste your time or mine by asking for you to promise that one will be set up.
The problem with an independent inquiry, as I've said before, is that Matt Hancock, Boris Johnson, anyone else who's dragged in front of it, it will be so far down the road that, unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but it is the reality, that the public will have moved on. Not the families, but the general public. And you will have Matt Hancock being dragged before an independent inquiry, and the public will be, well, leave him alone. He probably did his best. Boris Johnson, oh yes, I remember him as Prime Minister. He probably did his best. Leave them alone. You know, they're old. Something like this is going to be the situation that's going to be exposed. These people are going to get away with it. Perhaps the worst is they'll get a slap on the wrist and they'll be sent on their way. There'll be no real consequences. Boris Johnson will not be sent to prison. He will not even be punished, perhaps even politically. But I think most of these people will be out of office, or they'll be working in the private sector by the time a public inquiry has run its course.
Straight away. But perhaps on today of all days, you could reiterate, in fact, the promise that the Prime Minister made in July of last year, that there will be a full inquiry as soon as possible.
Yes, I think of course, the Prime Minister set out that there needs to be all of these questions, and I think that's totally reasonable, not least because we need permanently to be ready for another pandemic. That is a fact of life. And
in the future, we need to be ready. You need to be ready for a pandemic now. You don't get ready when the pandemic arrives. You're ready before. But this is just a waste of time because Matt Hancock knows exactly what went wrong, but he just doesn't want to say it. He doesn't want to lose face. And he understands that if he were to say, we made mistakes, these are the mistakes we made, he would have to resign. But instead, just dodge the question, ignore the criticism, and hope it will go away. And unfortunately, the cynicism is kicking in here. Unfortunately, it will go away. And Matt Hancock's mishandling of all of this will be forgotten. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Boris Johnson, Matt Hancock and others are dragged before an independent inquiry, and whatever charges that should come out of it are levelled against them, and they are correctly punished. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?